everyone, it's Martha with you today. So we're gonna make an album in a box, and these are the supplies that you're gonna need. So one of the first things you'll need is a scoreboard and a trimmer. And I have my We Are Memory Keepers scoreboard here, and it is also a trimmer. So one of the really awesome things to have. I'm also going to use my envelope punch board. This will come later in the tutorial. You are going to need a bone folder, a pencil, some double-sided adhesive. I'm using the 3/8 of an inch, can't think of it now, score tape. And you're also going to need the Scotch masking tape. So it looks like that inside. It comes in different colors. I'm using black cardstock today, so I'm going to use this, and I'll show you how to use that a little bit later in the tutorial. You're going to need some brads. I'm just using some, I don't even know if it says the size on here, 4mm brads. Okay, and then you're gonna need magnets. I've got some smaller ones and some larger ones here. I use the basic gray magnets because I really like the strength of them and that they have the adhesive back on them. You're gonna need a pair of scissors. I actually have two. I have my Martha Stewart ones, which are my absolute favorite scissors, and then I have my little Cricut ones here, and I really like those too. You're also going to need a paper collection of some kind. I'm using the Petticoats and Pinstripes by Echo Park, and so it's a really pretty collection. It's kind of cool with this one. It has the 3x4 cut-aparts actually on the back of the cover sheet, which is neat. So I'll just do a really quick page through. Such a pretty collection. I think it's older. I'm not even sure if you can still get it, but I was recently in the US and I had the opportunity to go to Tuesday Morning. For those of you who don't know, I live in Alberta, Canada. So I had the opportunity to go to Tuesday Morning, and I stocked up on paper. I got some really nice older paper collections and some newer ones. And then this is the sticker sheet. Some really cute stuff there. So that's the collection I'm gonna use. And then you will need some white cardstock for matting. I'm just using the 65-pound Recollections white cardstock. And then you will need chipboard. This is medium weight chipboard that I'm using, and you'll probably need about, depending on how you cut it, 2 to 3 sheets of 12x12 chipboard. But if you only have 8.5x11, you can still make this, no problem. You'll just need more sheets of it, that's all. So then you'll also need some black cardstock, and I'm using lightweight black cardstock for wrapping my album, and then I've got some, so to wrap it is the 65-pound white, just Recollections, black cardstock. And then for the actual album pages, I'm using some 80-pound black cardstock for the pages. That again will come later. For the album itself, to wrap it, we're going to use the 65-pound, and we will need some medium weight chipboard. So the first thing we're actually going to do is make the lid for our box. So you're going to need 1 sheet of chipboard at 7x8, and it's going to go in this direction on the 12x12 chipboard. So the 7-inch or the 8-inch side is going to run lengthwise on this. And then you will need 2 pieces of chipboard that are 1 3/4 by 8. And you will need one that is 1 3/4 by 7. So 1 3/4 by 7 for one of them. And then 1 3/4 by 8 for the other 2. So they're gonna go on here like this. So you're gonna leave about, you know, like a 1/16 of an inch for a gap here. And then about 1/2 an inch to wrap around the tops. And then this bottom here is gonna have a bigger section down here because we're gonna create a tab that's actually gonna tab to the spine of our album. So I've personally not seen an album in a box created the way that I created this one. It's very possible there's one out there. I just haven't personally seen it. The first thing we're gonna do is glue down the 7 by 8 piece of chipboard. So I'm just using Fabri-Tac. I don't know if I mentioned that was one of the things you're gonna need, but any kind of wet glue would work. I really like Fabri-Tac because it truly does not wrinkle your chip or your cardstock. Kind of got our guideline here with our chipboard of where we need this to be. Just kind of move it around. That's the good thing about the wet glue is you still have an opportunity to move it around a little bit so that you get it where you want it. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect as long as you have enough room, you're leaving yourself enough room to wrap a little bit around. That's really all that we're after here. You can take your bone folder and just give that a little press all the way around. Okay, and now your next pieces are fairly easy to attach. So we will just put our glue here along these edges here. And then again, so we're gonna place it down and we're gonna leave about a 1/16 of an inch between the chipboard. So between the 2 pieces of chipboard, about a 1/16 of an inch. There we go. And then just make sure they're even up and down. And then we will do our shorter side. And the glue doesn't have to be on there perfect because it's gonna get wrapped inside your cardstock. Good. And then the last piece. Oops. And I will put the dimensions down below for what you need for the chipboard, because sometimes I talk too fast. All right, and just move that in just a little bit, just like that. Perfect, okay. Now we will go around it like this. And I think I did mention, but if I didn't, this is a full sheet of 12 by 12 black 65 pound weight Recollections cardstock. Now that we've got all that done, I'm going to start over here because that side is still drying a little bit. You're going to take and cut down, let's bring it up here so you can see it. It's a bit of a big piece, so it'll be harder to work with. We're going to cut here and here. We're going to cut this square out, but you're not going to go all the way down. You're going to go down so that you're about 1/2 an inch from this piece of chipboard and this piece of chipboard. So our cut is gonna go right in here like this. We're going to cut down and we're gonna stop about right there. So about right there, we're gonna stop. And then you're gonna flip it over. It's a bit hard to get a hold of it, but you're gonna flip it over and you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna go about 1/2 inch from the edge of this chipboard out. And you're gonna cut that square out. And this is when it's a really good time to have a nice pair of sharp scissors. We've come to this point here. So this point, from this point, we're gonna cut down just until we reach the inside of these two pieces of chipboard there, where these two meet there. So we're just gonna cut, we're gonna cut from there in, and I'm gonna stop just inside these two pieces of chipboard, okay? So now we can do the same thing on this side. So we're gonna cut down till we're about 1/2 inch from this piece of chipboard. And then on this side, we're gonna cut down until we're about 1/2 inch from this piece of chipboard. And then we're gonna make our cut just to where these two meet. So if you lift it, you can kind of see where those two meet. The next thing we're gonna do is you're gonna take and snip your corners just like you'd be wrapping a normal album. So you wanna stay about, you can actually probably go closer than that. You can probably stay about a 32nd of an inch away from that edge between chipboard and cardstock. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing here. Being careful not to go all the way in. It's not the end of the world if you do. Nobody is perfect. Okay, and then the same thing here. All right, so we've created our tabs there. Oops. And then we'll go over here. We'll do the same thing there, like this. So this is what you should have now. So if I lay it down like this, you should have a tab here, 2 tabs here, and 1 tab there. So that's what it should look like. Tab, 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 okay? So now we're gonna go down here and you're gonna do the same thing here as we did up here. You're gonna go cut out about 1/2 inch and then you're actually gonna cut all the way in to the end of this chipboard. Okay, like that. All the way in to the end of that chipboard. And then you can snip that edge off. Okay, and now you'll rotate it and you'll cut this section off. Like that, okay? Then you're gonna cut from here up just to the end of this chipboard. Okay, cut up. Because you want this tab here to be even with this piece of chipboard there. Okay, and then snip off your little edge there. So that's what that bottom part should look like, just like this. Okay, and then you can go ahead and give that a nice angle as well, like this, okay? Now we will do the same thing over here. We're gonna cut up about 1/2 inch out. And it's okay if it's less than 1/2 inch because you're just wrapping it on the one side, okay? Just to the edge of that. then let's get a little bit further in here. No, that looks good. Okay, so now we've got this, and we will cut up. All right, let's snip this side off here. Okay, and then you're gonna cut up into this section there, like this, and then create a little tab there, little edge, and then we're gonna go in here and snip that. Okay, so now we've got a tab, a large tab at the bottom. So if I grab my spine, just to give you an idea how it's gonna work, if I grab my spine piece, once I have my spine piece wrapped, this is where it's going to attach. It's gonna attach with this. So next, we're gonna bring in all our edges and we're gonna burnish them nicely, like this. We're not wrapping this around, we're just burnishing it nicely. Continue to bring it all in. And this is why you want to use lightweight chipboard to wrap your, lightweight cardstock, like not the really heavy stuff to wrap your chipboard with, otherwise you'll get cracking. It's happened to me so much because I always think I want the heavier cardstock because it will give me a stronger book, but the trick is to use the lighter, and then you're gonna get that those nice really sharp edges. All right. And as you go along, you can check your corners, see how you did there. But again, not the end of the world, it's gonna be the inside of the box. Okay, bring out this edge. All right, and then just this little guy here. Okay, so next we can attach our double-sided tape. So I have the 3/8 of an inch score tape here. I'm just gonna put it all along our little tabs. For now, avoid these 4 tabs for now because the adhesive's gonna go on a different side for those. All right. I didn't even do what I said to do. Sometimes I can't follow my own instructions. All right, and then just this one more piece. So for these ones here, how the box will close, let's just bend these in a bit. They don't have to get bent all the way over. So for our box lid, how it's gonna close is one tab is gonna go and get tabbed to the inside, get my hands out of the way, to the inside of the box, like this. And then one tab is gonna tab to the outside of the box. And that's gonna get covered with pattern paper, so we're not gonna worry about that. And just pick whichever corner looks nicest to go around the outside of your box. First, what I wanna do is this is where our black masking tape is gonna come into play. I'm gonna take the tape and I'm gonna run it along my seams inside here. just to cover those up. And then I'm going to take my scissor and cut it just so it's a nice even edge. I picked up my tape at Michael's, but I imagine you could get it at some other places. It's not very expensive either, and it's actually really sticky. I've even assembled entire boxes with it. So you're just gonna cover up all your seams. This stops us from having to score paper to wrap the inside of our boxes. It's a much easier step, and because we're wrapping the entire box with cardstock versus just the little strips on all the edges, we're getting down here, sorry, we're getting a really strong box because of that. So down here we'll just do this and kind of tuck it along there like that. Okay, and then just bend that up. You can take your bone folder and smooth that down into it. Now we can kind of bend these up gently, and it just gives such a nice, clean, crisp look. Bend that up. So we will have one edge when we wrap our cardstock in, our corners in to close our box. We're gonna have one edge that's not covered. So we'll go ahead and put some tape there as well. And just kind of trim off that edge there so it looks a little neater. But this tape is pretty thin, and once you burnish it down, you don't even see it. So then when we close it up, both of our sides will be covered. All right, and we can do the same thing on this side here. Just rip off a little piece and attach it there. And you can go in and kind of feel the edge of the chipboard down here and just kind of burnish it into that. And then we can just trim this off the side there like that. All right, now the next step is to take our tape off, and we can wrap the sides of our box down. Oh, I forgot to put up here. Let's put some double-sided adhesive on this strip up here as well. Okay, so now we need to figure out what corners we're bringing in. Like, once you look at it, you're gonna see which one you like the best. Sorry, I was out of frame there. Which one looks the best to you, and then just bring it in like that. They both look pretty good, so I'm not too worried. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your tape, and so I'm gonna put this tab on the outside here and this tab on the inside. So I'm gonna wanna put tape on the outside of this tab and on the inside of this one. Okay, and then the same thing over here. You can look again and see which side looks better to you for the outside. That looks good. So I will put tape here. That'll go in. And then this will go out. Yeah, so I'll just put some of the black masking there, just so that's covered. Okay. All right, and we're ready to assemble it. So I've already taken the tape off this one. So we will just bring it down to wrap this here. Burnish it down nicely. And then we'll bring this corner over. And as you're doing that, kind of try to get it pretty tight so your corners are covered. So I didn't bring this piece in tight enough. So I'm going to show you one more little trick with the black masking. So if you do that, if you bring your pieces in and you're seeing the edge there of your chipboard, you can take the black masking and just kind of tuck it in there and put that on there first. And then when you close that up, you won't have the edge of your chipboard showing. Kind of a fun little trick there. All right, let's go to this side. Take the tape off, bring it over, press that down, and then we'll remove the tape from this edge. This side is fine, so I don't need to add anything to it. Burnish it down. And then let's do our top, and then we'll close up the top of our box. Perfect. Okay, so now the first thing you're going to want to do is take off the piece take off the adhesive that's going to go into the inside. I'll just tuck this back. So you're going to bring it in, and you're going to line up your two corners there and connect that. Press it down with your hand first, then bring it down and press it down with your bone folder inside. And then we can remove this adhesive here, or sorry, remove the backing and wrap that around. And then you've got that nice clean edge, and everybody is just joined together nicely there. Really nice. Okay, so same thing on this side. Take the inside, the tab that's going to the inside, the backing off first. You can bend that back so you can see better. Bring it in, meet your corners nicely. Press it down with your hand first, then come in here and give it a good press down, and then remove the backing here, tuck in any tape that might be exposed, and then just bring that over nice. Just like so. All right. And the lid of our box is made, and it's finished inside and everything. So you're ready to just add your pattern paper to that. So the next thing we'll work on is our spine. So our spine is going to attach right there. And to wrap the spine, you need a piece of the 65-pound weight cardstock that is 4.5 by 8.5. So we'll put our lid aside for now. So So when we wrap this, you want to bring your chipboard to the top of one of your long sides, and you want to attach it to that long side there, like this. Because when we put it, once it's wrapped, it's gonna get tabbed to here. So you're not gonna need to wrap the top. You're only gonna need to wrap 2 of the sides and the bottom. So we can go ahead and put our glue on there. And so we'll try to leave the 2 sides even, here and here, and then the bottom will have a 1 inch, because this part is going to tab to the bottom of your box. Okay, put it nice and even. All right, so we're just gonna, again, snip our corners off. Same thing up here. Create your little tabs. And then since this is still drying, we can put on our double-sided adhesive on these ones here. And you can go ahead and put it on here too. This is not getting wrapped. It is a tab. Put 2 pieces here because we need that to be nice and strong. Then we can get our bone folder, burnish that on, just like so. All right, and then you can go ahead and bend these in. We have not removed the backing from our tape. We're just burnishing these on nicely. Like so. And you can do the same thing with this one. Just burnish it, but we're not going to remove the tape on it. All right, and then you can remove that. Bring it in, burnish it on. And our spine piece of chipboard was 6 7/8 by 3.5. Because the bottom of our box, so the top of the lid is 8 by 7, but the bottom is going to be 1/8 of an inch smaller, just so that the lid can fit over properly once we have all our pattern paper and embellishments on. So the spine itself is going to be 6 7/8 by 3.5. And I'll make sure to put in a note at that part when I start this. All right, so we've got that bent down and on. And this will tab to that. Now we can go ahead and attach our spine to our large tab here. So we will grab our double-sided tape. So we will put it on here. Could have done this before, it would have probably been easier. All right. And you want to get a nice good amount of tape on here, because this is what is going to hold our spine on and the 2 ends of our book together. So burnish those down nicely. Okay. Now we can go ahead and remove the backing. Like so. Make sure none of that tape is exposed. Now we're gonna attach our spine piece, keeping in mind that the spine piece is 7 7/8 wide and our base is 8 inches. Sorry, no, this part here is 6 7/8 wide and this part of our lid is 7 inches. So we're gonna attach it, trying to leave the 1/8 of an inch, or sorry, this 1/16 of an inch of a gap between the spine and the base of the lid here. Also keeping in mind that we want to leave about a 1/16 of an inch on both sides of this free. So we want to center this onto the lid of our box as best as we can. So that looks about good there. Just make sure it moves freely before you stick it all the way down. And then we can go ahead and burnish that on. Perfect. And you can give it a bit of a burnish on the back too. Being careful not to overbend it. And then you can go ahead and add some of the Scotch masking tape. Just line it up there. I cut it so that it has a nice straight edge. Just to hide our gap there. And then bring it in nice and straight, and then we can cut it off here. So we'll get a different piece. I didn't come in far enough with that side there. I'd be better off to just rip a section first and then place it on there. So I'll start over here this time. Practice makes perfect. And then all the way over. And then once we get over to this side, I can cut it there. All right, and that hides our spine nicely there, our gap in the spine. And you can give that a nice burnish as well. All right, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna prepare the bottoms, the bottom flaps of the bottom of our box. So you're going to have 4 pieces. I'll just set the lid aside for now. You're gonna have 4 pieces of chipboard. So these 3 pieces are the flaps that fall down, and then this is the bottom of the box, the base of the bottom of the box. So the first thing we need to do is wrap these 3 flaps. So you're gonna have 2 pieces of chipboard that measure 3.5 by 7 7/8, and you're going to have 1 piece that measures 3.5 by 6 7/8. And you're going to need 2 pieces of your black cardstock that measure 9.5 by 5 1/4, and 1 piece that measures 8.5 by 5 1/4. So we're gonna wrap these similar to the same way as we did the top of the box, the lid. So we're gonna put adhesive along the underneath of it, center it on there as best as you can, and we'll just go ahead and attach all these pieces while we're letting the other ones dry. Center it. Make sure it's nice and straight. And then our last one is the smaller one. Let's go ahead and add. And this goes there. Then we'll just go ahead and burnish that on the bone folder. And then we're going to go ahead and fold up all of these edges, like so. A good way to do it too is you can stand it on itself and bend it over if you like to do that. Give them all a good burnish. Now we will snip off our edges, same as we did for the top, leaving about 1/32 of an inch there. Just like this. Now with these, we're gonna wrap 3 sides. And we're gonna leave one side open at the bottom, and that side is going to hinge to the bottom of our box, like so. So we will just wrap the top. So attach our double-sided tape. And that roll is empty. Thank goodness we have a backup. So on one of the long ends, you can add 2 rows of the tape because it's going to be the one that hinges to the box. We'll burnish those on. Take the backing off, place it on there, give it a good burnish. Let's do this side first. So it doesn't take too much to get it on there because we've already pre-folded and burnished our edges. And then we'll bring this one in. Like so. So now that is one of our flaps with this end left open. I'm gonna wrap these 2 and then I'll be right back. So these pieces are wrapped now as well. So I've wrapped the 3 bottom flaps. So now let's go ahead and attach them to this bottom base piece. And this piece measures 7 7/8 by 6 7/8. Remove the backing. And we'll just slide it under. The way I like to do this is I like to take the chipboard, bring it up to this, then bring your side up, and then lay your side down. And you'll get an even gap from top to bottom. And then we'll do the other side. It's the same length. Again, bring it up to it. Just make sure they're even. Bring it up and then just fold it back. And our last one. Make sure there's no adhesive exposed. So bring it up to it. Lift it up and then let it fall down. And then the final step is to attach these two up here together. Before I do that, I do want to add the black masking. Actually, no, we can do that after because it'll be better when it's attached up here. Remove the backing from this tab here that, sorry, I have a frog in my throat, that we have on the spine. And then we'll bring it up. So this piece of chipboard and this piece of chipboard are the exact same width. So if you line them up evenly, you'll be good. And then leave about, again, 1/16 of an inch of a gap. You want to have a comfortable gap in your spine. And then we press that down. And that's basically the base of the box. Let's attach the black masking tape down here. Cut an even section. This step in itself makes the process of putting together one of these album in a box so much better, because you're not fiddling with all those little 1-inch strips. And I like the cohesive look of wrapping it completely with the cardstock as well. I think it gives you a really nice, clean, professional look on the outside when you do that. And if you want, you can go ahead and miter these a little bit. If that bothers you, I think I'm just gonna leave mine for now. And then I'll just turn it to myself here. edge there. And now we just need to run it along here, and then the book is really nicely covered and constructed on the inside. And we will just have our pretties to add. Just give this one a little miter as well. On that edge there. These will all be covered with paper, so anything like this, as long as it's covered at the very corner, is not going to show. So we won't worry about that. Them all nice and light are burnished down. And then it just closes up. Bring the top down, bring this in, slides over the top. And that is our album in a box album base. And then we open it back up. Let's get started on our pages. So the first thing we need to do before we can attach our pages here, we need to cover up the spine with some of our pattern paper because our papers aren't all the same size. So some of the spine will be exposed. So I'm just adding the quick dry adhesive on the back here. The fabric tack, sorry. Okay, and then this paper does seem like it's directional. Make sure you put it on the right way. And we're just gonna leave an even border. And this piece measures 6 1/4 this way, and 3 3/8 this way. So 6 1/4 by 3 3/8. Okay. So let's put our book aside for a second here. And we are going to work on our pages. So we're going to have 3 actual pages, and all the other ones will be flaps at the back of the book. So the first page is going to measure 6 1/2 by 11. And you're going to score it at 1/2 inch, 1 1/2, and then at 7 3/4. So that's going to be the first page. So the first page is 6 1/2 by 11, and we're going to score at 1, 1 1/2, and 7 3/4. Then the next page is going to measure 5 1/2 by 11. So they're all going to be 11 long, just the width is going to be different. So this one, you're going to score at, again, 1/2 inch, 1 1/2, and 7 3/4. So 1/2 inch, 1 1/2, and 7 3/4. And then the final page is going to measure 4 1/2 by 11, and you're going to score at 1/2 inch, 1 1/2, and 7 3/4. So those are our pages. So we're going to attach the first page to the front, to this side here of our spine. And so we have 2 score lines. We have one here and one here. this score line or this section, we're not going to put any adhesive on. This section back here, you're going to add your score tape or wet glue, whatever you prefer. So we're going to fold it over like this, and then we're going to attach it about 1/4 inch up from the bottom, not the bottom of our pattern paper, but the bottom of the book, and then all the way aligned to this side of the pattern paper. And then just make sure it flops over there. Perfect. Beautiful. Okay, let's attach the next one. So the one we attached just now was 4.5 by 11, and the next one is the 5.5 by 11, and we're going to do the exact same thing. This time it's going to be easier because we're just going to align it with this score line along here, but of course this one's taller, so don't fret about that. All right, perfect. Flip that one over. And then the final one is the one that is 6.5 by 11. And again, take that backing off. And we will just align it with this one we just put down. Just put it right along that edge all the way up, like so. And this flap is going to go back, and we'll work on that later. And then this one goes like this, and this one goes like this. So that's how you get your nice stacked look in there. So next we will work on page 1, and we're going to do that acetate pocket. So these guys are going to behave themselves in a minute. So now let's work on creating the pocket for the first page in our book. So you're going to need a piece of black cardstock, and it's going to measure 4 7/8 by 7 3/8. And you're going to score it at 1/2 inch, flip it, score at 1/2 inch, flip, and again score at 1/2 inch. So only on 3 sides. So you're going to score 2 of the short sides and 1 of the long sides. So next we have 4 pieces of pattern paper, 2 that measure 6 1/8 by 1/2 inch, and 2 that measure 4 1/8 by 1/2 inch. So they're going to go on here like this and like this, and then like that and like that. But first we're going to miter our corners. So what you're going to do is you take one of your short sides and one of your long sides, and you line them up like this in the corners. And then you're going to grab a scissor, and you're going to cut from this corner here to that corner there. So you're going to cut up diagonally like that. And then that's going to give you your mitered edge like this. So we'll leave that one there, and then we'll take our next one. Again, just go ahead and line it up in the corners there. And then cut up. And try to put them back down where they cut from, That way you know where they're all gonna end up. Okay. So this one, same thing, corner to corner. So that one's gonna go there. This one will go here. And then we'll just cut our final one. Just make sure we're in the right orientation. This pocket is probably the finickiest part of this whole book. It's a pretty straightforward book, but this is such a nice little feature right when you come into the book. So next we need to glue on all of these pieces around our frame, around our pocket. So I would suggest to go ahead and do the top one first. Make sure it's aligned the way you want it. So just added some wet glue. And I'm going to try to keep an even space from this side and the top. Just to make sure our frame is going to go evenly all the way around. Okay, now we can attach this side of it. Good. And we'll attach, kind of lay this one in. Just so we can be sure that it will line up. Yep. This one on. Pretty good side to side there. And now we will attach this final one. There are many different ways to do frames. This is the one that I found really works for myself. And that one just falls beautifully into place. Perfect. So now you have your nice frame all the way around. So the next step, you're going to need a mat that you can cut on. I have my Tonic Tim Holtz mat here. You're going to need a metal ruler or a ruler with a metal edge. And I'll zoom in for this part. So we're going to line it up about right there so that we have a little bit of a black border between the ruler and the edge of our frame. And we're going to go down about 1/8 of an inch from this edge and then start cutting. And just run it along your ruler and then stop about 1/8 of an inch before you get to the bottom. So leave about the same space there. And again, You can kind of feel where it stopped there. And we'll do the same thing here. And then final one down here. All right, so there might be a few places that you'll need to trim with your scissors. There we go. There's our nice cutout frame all the way around. So I snipped off the corners here, these edges, just mitered them in like a normal pocket. So the next thing we're gonna do is put some tape all around the frame of the back of our piece. So we'll go all the way around here. This is 1/4 inch tape. That, and then we will remove the backing. And then I've got a piece of acetate. That is just slightly smaller than the inside of my frame. Gotta be careful how you stick it down because it is clear. And we'll just put that on there like that. Make sure it's sealed all the way around nicely. And looks like I'll have to trim some of it off over here, which is fine. Alright, so that piece blends in. And there does seem to be some across the top. There we go. And now we can attach our pocket to the front page in our book. Let's bring our book back in. So now we can attach this right there. So we will go ahead and put some of our 3/8 of an inch tape on these flaps here. Like that. And then to begin, we'll just remove just a little bit of our, well, let's start on this side. We'll just remove a little bit of our tape over here. Bring it down, and then you can bring the bottom in too. And then just go ahead and flatten it out like that so that you can see what you're doing. And then we're going to line it up to the top and the bottom of our page, being sure not to go over that score line. And then we can close in this side and make sure we're going to be where we need to be there before we remove any tape. So that looks good. So we can remove that tape. And then we can go ahead and remove that tape as well. There we go, there's our pocket, ready to go. So now let's work on the back side of the first page. This is the back of the first page here. And there's not too much gonna be happening here, just a 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 photo mat. And then I'll just be covering this side here. Also with some pattern paper or a photo mat. And then I've just added a basic gray magnet here. These are the small size. And the same with this page. It's just going to be a photo mat with some pattern paper and then another photo mat there. So we won't be doing anything on that page. And same thing with this one, just a 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 photo mat with some pattern paper. Next we will go on to this page here, which is the 6 1/2 by 6 1/2 inch page. And we're gonna make our little pocket. This is going to have this up here and this down here. And then these two on the sides here, like so. So you will need 2 pieces of black cardstock that measure 2 1/2 by 6 1/2. So I've got 2. And then 2 that measure 1 1/2 by 6 1/4. And you're gonna score them both, these two. You're gonna score at 1/2 inch on the 1 1/2 inch side so that you'll be left with a 1 inch strip here. So you're going to do that with 2 of them. And with the other 2, you're going to score them at 1 inch on the 2 1/2 inch side so that you have a 2 inch section there. So you're going to do that for both of them. And then you can attach your double-sided adhesive on all 4 of your flaps. So our next step that we're going to do is we're going to take the We Are Memory Keepers corner rounder chomper, and I'm going to use the 1/4 inch side and round my corners just like so. And we're going to do that to all 4 of our pieces. Sometimes it doesn't get it the first time, so I gotta go the second time. This is a really great tool to have. I've had mine for at least 7 years, but I have a few of the other ones as well. The different corner rounders with the different edges. So the first thing we want to do is attach this piece up here and then this piece down here, but first let's put the pattern paper on. So the pattern paper for this is going to measure 2 1/4 wide, or no, sorry, 1 3/4 wide by 6 1/4. So 1 3/4 by 6 1/4, and you're going to need 2 of those for your top and bottom flap. So go ahead and round the corners on those as well. Just like so. Awesome. And now we can attach these onto our flaps. Perfect. Attach these, and I'm just again using my Fabri-Tac. I'm just going to center it on there. I love how this green and yellow looks against the black, contrast of the black. Bring it closer to the edges. can remove our adhesive from one of them. First one will go all the way to the bottom and all the way to the right of the bottom of our 6.5 by 6.5 inch page. So go ahead and line it up. Like so. And you can press it down flat actually, because it's got nothing behind it yet. And then we'll do the same thing with this one. Line it up all the way to the right and all the way to the top. Good. Check the back, make sure we didn't go over. Alright, that looks good. Okay, so now our next pieces, these two smaller pieces here, we can go ahead and attach our pattern paper before we attach these on as well. And I'm going to use the gray polka dot for these ones. They are not, my pattern paper is not directional, so I can kind of punch whichever side I want, but if yours is, then just keep that in mind when you're putting it on. Again, just center it on there nicely. You can definitely add this after you add the flaps, just because there's nothing going on top of it or anything like that, but I figure it's probably easier to do it when it's not added yet. And remove the backing from your tape. And then this one, since it does not measure the full 6.5, it measures 6 1/4. You're gonna center it top and bottom all the way to the left on this side. Center it top and bottom, and then so it's gonna be about, you're gonna leave about 1/8 of an inch at the top and 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. And that should get you about the right placement. Okay. And we'll attach this one. Make sure all your adhesive is tucked in. And again, center it top to bottom. And make sure it's inside your page on the front here. So it's just a good idea to turn it over. Make sure it's where it's supposed to be. So then that's how we're gonna get that look. So next what we need to do is put on the little mechanism for our twine closure. What I've done here is I've cut 2 circles out of chipboard and 2 circles out of my pattern paper. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those together, just like so. And that's just going to give a nice strong bond, this glue will, and then the chipboard is going to be nice for when the twine wraps underneath, it's just going to go in easier. Okay, and I'm going to grab my paper piercer. I'm just going to make a hole right in the center, being careful not to poke yourself. So just make a hole in the center of one of them, and then the other one. Okay, and then we're going to get some brads. These are 4mm brads, and we'll just need 2 of them. And you're going to put them in the center that we just poked through. Leave them open at the back for now. So we've got them through. So the next thing we're going to do is make a hole where we want them on our flap. I'm going to guesstimate. I'm going to try to keep it left to right, top to bottom, and just try to go in that. Make sure I'm in the right place. So we can get the first one in, and then that'll help us align the second one. So we've got this one in, so then we can kind of see where we're gonna want the second one, and I think about right here's looking good. So put that one in. So it's being pesty. Okay. So that's in. And now we'll take our twine, and you're going to, I'm just using some simple cotton twine here. You're going to wrap it under one of your circles, bring it under, and make a knot. Okay, and then we can trim that off, our little excess there. And then you bring it down and bring it under your second one down here, and then you can do crisscross or up and down or whatever you'd like. I just like the simple up and down. So there's that cute page. It's looking really good. So then I'll just put my pattern paper and some little photo mats in there. But other than that, that page is done. Let's work on the back of page 3. Working on page 6. So I've got my magnet in there already. So I've got my pocket that's going to go on here. And my pocket measures 4.5 by 7 3/8. I'm going to use the envelope punch board. So let me just move this over. So I've got the envelope punch board here, and I'm gonna close it up so that my flaps are closed underneath. And I'm gonna line it up at 1.5. This tick mark here is lining up at 1.5. So this edge is lined up at 1.5. And I'm gonna punch, and I'm gonna flip it over, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna tuck it in again, and I'm gonna line it up at 1.5, just like so. So that's what we're gonna have there. This one seems a little, there we go, that's better. Then I'm gonna take my trimmer, trimmer out. And lay it in the trimmer, and then I'm going to line up the bottoms of my dips here with the track in my trimmer. And I'm just going to start there and cut over just like this. So then I've got my cute little pocket edge there. We'll bring the book back in and we will attach it right there. So the first thing before we can attach it, we will just snip off our corners here inside. You can see it better that way. So like that and like that. And we'll just take off just one side of our backing tape first. We'll tuck this guy in and we'll line it up, not all the way to the score line in here, because we want our flap to be able to close. So before we move on from that, we'll make sure our flap closes, and it does. So perfect. So now we can remove the backing from the bottom and this side. And smooth it on. Kind of just let it fall where it wants. And there we go. There's our pocket. And closes with the magnet. So then we will just add our pattern paper and this page will be finished. Let's work on the inside back of our book. We have 4 large flaps. I need 2 pieces of black cardstock that measure 8 by 6.5. On the 8-inch side, you're going to score at 1/2 inch and at 1.5 inches. So you're going to need 2 of those. Then you're going to need 2 that measure 6.5 by 7.5. And you're going to score those at 1/2 inch and at 1 inch. So you're going to have 2 like that. So let's put our scoreboard aside. So the first thing we're going to attach is the 8 by 6.5 inch pieces. Now remove your backing and we're going to center them. So one flap is going to go this way and one flap is going to go this way. So we're going to attach them in here, and you're just going to bring them about 1/8 of an inch from the top, bottom, and left. So you can go ahead and bend them over. And we will attach them just like so. There's one, so you can open that one up. And then we'll attach the second one. And we'll do the same thing. You can bend it in and then center it onto your piece. And you can kind of try to see if it lines up with this one over here. But it should if it's going where it's supposed to go. Okay. Let's go ahead and press that down. And then flip it back. And then the 2 that are 6.5 by 7.5. are going to go up and down. So again, you can flatten that, and these ones you're just going to center inside this space here as best as you can. Alright, we can open that one up, and then we will attach that one. This final one back here. And again, you can kind of try to line it up there. Alright. And now we'll work on our large pocket in the back here. I've gone ahead and added the pattern paper to the inside back section of the book, the inside back cover. And the pattern paper measures 6 5/8 by 7 5/8. So 6 5/8 by 7 5/8. We're going to add our pocket. And our pocket measures 7.5 by 3.5, and you're going to score at 3/8 of an inch and then at 3/4 of an inch. Then you're going to flip to the bottom, one of the long sections, and you're going to score at 3/8 and 3/4. Then you're going to flip again, and you're going to score at 3/8 and 3/4. So that's for the bottom of our pocket. For the top of the pocket, it's going to measure 8 3/4 by 6, and you're going to score at 3/4, and then at 4 3/4 again, and then at 4 3/4. That's for the top flap of the pocket. But we will work on the bottom of it first. What we need to do is cut out these 2 squares here. There'll be 4 squares. They create one large square. So we're going to cut those out. This whole section with these 4 smaller squares get cut out. Then we're going to go ahead and fold on our score lines, fold them all in. Grab my bone folder here. Well, actually, let's go this way. That way our tape will all be on the right side. And you're going to want to attach your adhesive to the outermost flaps of each side and the bottom. So your pocket's going to be like this, and you're going to want to attach like this your adhesive. So we can go ahead. Let's take this side off first and stand it up. And then you can take this edge here, wrap it inside, and it's going to catch to the adhesive that we have on our flap here. Just kind of make sure it's nice and square in there. Just take your time. You want a nice square pocket, All right, and once you think you have it where you want it, just give it a nice press. And we'll do the same thing on this side. Just bring it in so it's square. And just give it a nice press once you think you have it where you want it. And then we'll go ahead and remove that. And then we can place our pocket where we want it back here. So I'm going to try to leave an even gap around these three sides. Let's get our top flap and just kind of see where that's going to go. So I think we can move down a bit with this one. So we'll do about 3/8 of an inch from the bottom, and then about 7/8 of an inch on either side. So once you have it where you want it, go outside and press it down with the bone folder. And then we can attach our top flap here. So again, we've folded, our piece was like this. So we folded this back, and then we folded this down to create the 3/8 of an inch gusset. And then we added adhesive on the back 3/8 of an inch piece there. So you can go ahead and press that down so that you can kind of see where you're going to line it up. And line it up with your pocket down here. And we'll leave a little edge showing at the top. And then you can press that down. Press that down. And press that back so it's where we want it. And then that's how the pocket's going to go. And I'm going to put a magnet in here. And then it's going to close with the same twine closure we created earlier. So you can add your pattern paper and close it the same way. And then we'll add another sheet. Probably I'll do some white cardstock in here. That's how I'll finish the inside of this. But for now we will move on. So we have two flaps that have a 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 photo mat, and then two stacked pockets on the side for small tags. These are our inch or 1/2 inch flaps that go like this. So we're going to do the inside of both of those. So I've already done one, and I'm going to show you how to do the other one. So on this one, we've attached the pockets on this side here, and on this one, on the top flap, we're going to attach the pockets on this side over here. Got some shadows happening here today. First, we will attach our small pocket up here where we want it. And so the smaller pocket measures 3 by 3, and we scored it at 1/2 inch on both sides so that it creates a 2 inch by 3 inch pocket. And then we have a larger pocket that measures 3 by 4, and we scored it on both sides so it creates a 2 inch by 4 inch pocket. So we will first attach our smaller pocket, and then I'll show you how I did the little design there with the envelope punch board. I folded in my score lines, and I attached my double-sided adhesive, and we're going to attach it 3/4 of an inch down from the top, and then it's going to be lined up all the way to the left. So that's our first pocket. So I'm going to grab the envelope punch board, and I'll show you how I did the design for that. So I just folded my pieces in. Then you put it in, and I'm going to bring it up here to show you. I basically just centered it in there, kind of between, there's these two little things right there and right there. So I just centered it between those two once it was folded, and then I just punched it. So that's how you get that. And then the pattern paper piece, I do the exact same thing. I just put it in and center it under there, and I punch it again. And the pattern paper piece measures 1 3/4 by 3 3/4. And so we're just gonna punch that as well. And then attach it onto our pocket, like so. Okay, so let's add our adhesive. And we'll put that on there. Like that. Perfect. And then we'll remove our backing. I'm just going to put some tape down here so that it closes up. I accidentally punched it in the wrong place up here, but that's okay. It's not going to make any difference. Tuck in our adhesive, and then go ahead and remove the bottom as well, the backing. And we'll bring our book back in here, and we will attach it right on top of the other one and all the way to the bottom of this flap, just not overlapping our score mark. So stay about 1/16 of an inch from our score mark. And then we will attach our 6 1/4 by 4 1/4 white photo mat. Perfect. Now let's work on our 2 waterfalls on the other flaps. So if we close in the book from the back, we close this one down first, and then this one comes up. On this flap here, we're going to create our 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 waterfall. So I've cut the black cardstock at 4 3/4 by 6 1/4, and I scored it at 1/2 inch. So once our 1/2 inch flap is folded over, we have 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 photo mat. So we're going to take our backing off our tape, and you can kind of lift up this flap, and we're going to align it to this side, but we'll leave 1/8 of an inch from top to bottom, between the top and the bottom. Just make sure it's nice and straight, because this is going to be what lines up all the rest of our pieces. So it needs to be straight. Okay, so that looks good. So our first one is on, and we'll open them and burnish that after. So your next one, again, you're going to remove the backing from your tape, and you're going to align it with the bottom of the flap that we just put on. So before you really press down, close it and kind of make sure that it's straight. It looks like it is, so now we can press that one down. So I have 4 more to go. So I'm going to go ahead and attach those and I will be right back. So it actually only took 5 of my pieces. So I had 5 of the 4 3/4 by 6 1/4 scored at 1/2 inch on the 4 3/4 side. So I've got those on now. So the next thing I'm going to do is add my strap for my closure, and I'm just going to add it here on this side here. So this piece measures 2 inches wide by 4 1/2, and then I scored it at 1/2 inch on this, on the 4 1/2 inch side. So once it's folded over, it measures 4 by 2, and I'm just going to center it up and down on my flap here, just like this. So it's attached there now. I'm going to close over my pages, and then I've got a large basic gray magnet here. I'm using the large one because it's holding down quite a bit, especially once we add pattern paper and then our pictures. So I want a nice magnet closure there. So I've added it on here, and I'm just going to close it over. I'm going to make sure before I put it down that my waterfall is the way I want it, and then I will press it down. So then that is all done. That piece is all done. So this flap over here is just going to have a photo of 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 photo mat and then some pattern paper. So I'm going to close that one over, and the same with this one here. It's just going to be 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 photo mat and some pattern paper. On the front flap here is what we're going to work on next. Let's work on the waterfall for the very front outside flap. So when we get to the back of the book, this is the first thing you see is this flap. So I've got 5 pieces that I've cut at 4 3/4. So I've cut them at 4 3/4 this way by 4 1/4 this way. So on the 4 3/4 section, you're going to put it in your scoreboard and you're going to score at 1/2 inch. So you're going to have a 1/2 inch flap. And then once it's folded over, that's going to give you your 4 1/4 by 4 1/4 waterfall pieces. We're going to remove the backing from our double-sided adhesive, and we are going to attach it all the way to the right and all the way to the top of this flap here. Again, be careful how you attach it because it is your first one and all the other ones are going to line up with it. All the way to the corner. And then all the way to the top. And then make sure it's straight down this edge the whole time as well. So that looks good. So let's do our next one. And we will again line it up with the bottom of our piece that we just attached with the bottom flap. Like so. Alright, now I will attach the rest and I will be right back. Now we need to attach our closure flap to the bottom of this flap. So this one measures, again, 4 by 2, scored at 1/2 inch. Well, it's 4 1/2 by 2. scored it 1/2 inch, and then it creates a 4x2 closure there. So we're going to go ahead and remove the backing of our 1/2 inch of the tape on the 1/2 inch flap. You can move these up and then kind of make sure you're in the center there. And we'll attach it down here all the way to the bottom. Like that. And then again, we've got the large basic gray magnet here. So we will attach that to the inside of our flap. And then close this up. Make sure it's nice and even how we want it. And then bring our flap over, making sure that it is straight. All right. And this magnet in here and these magnets are actually keeping this flap closed really nice, so I won't even have to add another magnet inside of there. That ends our tutorial for today. Everything else is just adding your pretty patterned papers and all of that other fun stuff, all your photo mats and so on and so forth. So I really hope you enjoyed it, and you'll get to see the finished project in the walkthrough. Have a wonderful day.